Okay, this video lecture is going to cover gender issues, gender inequality, and sexual orientation for the next week's material all in one. And what I'm going to do here is simply outline and highlight some of the important concepts and ideas from our PowerPoint slides. It's going to complement those slides. The first thing I want you to look at and pay attention to is the thoughts about and the information about the difference between sex and gender. It's not just semantics, it's important because we want to understand the difference between just the biology of ourselves and the gender roles related to the idea of gender that we're going to be focused on. So understand the difference there. And then be sure to look at the different kinds of sexism that we experience in our society. I've broken it down into psychological forms of sexism and the sociological or structural forms of sexism here. Take a look at those. This refers to, when we talk about structural sexism, these social institutions and how we evidence sexist practices and policies in these institutions. One of those that we focus on in this class is, of course, the media. We've come back to it a number of times in this class. Here I want you to pay attention to how the media sort of perpetuates those rigid gender roles in society. On slides like this, there's some information here about gender inequality and patriarchy. Those are some terms you want to be familiar with. And this idea of feminism. You're going to see a test question you might draw on major feminist principles, which are outlined here. Understand what feminism is as a version of conflict theory that we've addressed in this class. Some of the consequences of sexism as well, including the health costs, structural costs, psychological costs. Pay attention to those. The idea of masculinity, especially in the media, and how hypermasculinity is advanced in the media that we attend to. There's some video content that goes along with this, so pay attention to that. And just a few things with the other slide on sexual orientation. You'll see here there's a heterosexual questionnaire related to an activity. Get you thinking about the different standards we have for heterosexuals versus homosexuals. You know, there's been a lot of movement in our culture with homosexuality being more tolerated and accepted, actually, beyond simply tolerating it. Same-sex marriages are now the norm across the country. This is something I couldn't have said just a few years ago, so this is another one of those moving targets that we want to be thinking about in this class. You'll see also, and the main thing I want you to look for when you read this section in the material under sexual orientation is how it relates to gender roles. That's why we talk about them in similar ways. But also this idea of homophobia. Understand how it's defined and what its origins are. That's going to be testable material as well. And these consequences of homophobia, the dark side of homophobia involving violence against gays and lesbians, the broader LGBTQ community. I hope that you spend some time maybe looking at some of the supplementary information about these issues involving sexual orientation and specifically homophobia. There's a lot of information out there that's not necessarily testable on this subject that you might be interested in as well. So that's it for this module. I'm going to keep it short. I'll see you in the next one where we're going to start wrapping things up with global stratification and the environment.